everybody, this is Raspberry Barrel, back at it again, to read the biography of Hemera the Bright Knight. And this biography is by MewniHistorian on DeviantArt. Hello everybody, before we begin I just want to say, I'm sorry I've been gone quite a while, but thank you all for your patience and such. I've had a lot going on, but I'm not promising that I'm going to be back consistently, but I'm going to try to be back a little more. So, I think that's all I have to say. Let's just get right back into this biography. If you have forgotten what happened in part 1, then go back. Hopefully that'll be up on the screen. You can watch the last part. And now we go on to part 2 of Hemera, the Bright Knight. Please forgive me if I stutter, hesitate, or mispronounce anything, and for any noises in the background while reading this work. After the funeral, Hemera asked her parents about exploring the northern regions of Libellion, plus the swampy center, instead of returning home. It didn't take much to convince them, but they wanted her home by the end of the next year. After resting and restocking supplies, the Turan Explorania party left to explore the bamboo forest, which remained unexplored because of how dense it was, but Hemera was determined to uncover its secrets. One creature they found was the panda, a tiny creature about the size of a teddy bear that lives in the trees and eats the bamboo, but soon came across a larger version called berserker pandas because of their massive size, capable of riding on and have sharp claws and teeth, but were just as docile as their miniature counterparts. Throughout the centuries, they would be domesticated as pets. They continued to explore. As Squartuk rolled around, they found an ancient pyramid, one that was centuries, possibly thousands of years old. Hemera believed that this ancient pyramid might hold the answers her grandmother Celine wanted about the origins of their species. Without hesitation, they explored the perimeter and discovered ancient ruins from what seemed to be a village, but this village was abandoned a long, long time ago. Was older than Moe's tower, which was originally a monster tower. While the pyramid was booby-trapped, Hemera used her wand's glass to see the traps and either avoid them or set them off beforehand. In one of the chambers they found paintings and carvings, telling of an interesting story. A surviving drawing Hemera did of the carvings. Based on the interpretations, the monsters were facing off against some kind of creatures that had human shape. This could be some kind of ancient battle, one between the first settlers' ancestors and monsters, and could possibly explain the hostility between the first settlers and the monsters. Hemera and the others explored the pyramid a lot, making camp in the large center. They also found ancient treasures and stuff inside, and they bagged a few small objects to take back with them. Hemera took interest in the designs of the pyramid, and would later share them with her denial cousins, who would incorporate them into their structures, making their pyramids more pointed. After leaving the area, they headed east, and about at the end of the year they encountered a jungle, the Gayan Jungle. Its warmer weather made it pleasant to explore during the wintry months to come. Within the jungle, a multi-headed dragon race, not that much taller than humans, who lived in the area with trees that had apples with skin so yellow and shiny it was like gold. These dragons were very protective of these apples and wouldn't let anyone close to them. Soon they found the east coast and found a species of sea serpents that were extremely friendly. By the end of Gravnock, they returned to the Dragonfly Flatland to restock and drop off their loots. After some resupplying, they began their journey to the Dragon Moors, the swamp region named because of the dragons that lived there, but Hemera and her party weren't afraid. By the end of Spleenix, they had entered the moors, and immediately encountered dragons, but most dragons don't kill on sight, so they weren't really that big of an issue. The Monster Pyramid. Within the moors, they discovered some new species not yet seen, and within the scent of the swamp, an insanely large tree. It was just as large as Butterfly Castle, maybe larger, and it would become the home of the future Wyvern family, but they would live in harmony with the tree. They camped there several times as they explored the swamp throughout the course of Cork. It was getting very hot, and often Hemera and others had to sleep nude in their yurts to avoid waking up in a pool of sweat. They spent the month of Thurk traveling through the riverlands to return to the capital to prepare for a journey home. Soon they were on a ship home and arrived in Squartuk. Hemera enjoying not having to walk miles a day and just relaxing. Hemera had turned 19 during her time in the swamp. It had been 2 years since she had set foot on her home soil, and was treating with cheering and excitement of her people to have their princess home. While she was gone, her brother was learning the ways of being a captain, and her sister found a boyfriend who wasn't completely terrified of her, only partially. Eric Johansson, crown prince of the Johansson kingdom. She was happy for her sister. She herself was coming up on 5 years with her boyfriend Jab, really liking him, and thinking she could see him as her king. After the year turned 885 BS, Hemera thought about her future as queen, and as a magic user decided to enroll in the Illyrian Academy starting in the spring. Surprisingly enough, Hemera met her cousin Stephen there. Turns out his wings sprouted that spring. With the Mewmins being spread throughout the planet, there was only so many mages attending. There were 4 times as many girls to boys since the magic was stronger in females. The first half of the year was designed to draw out one's inner magic. Some are naturally gifted, but sometimes it can take weeks or months of work, and despite Hemera being a butterfly, she still worked hard. While any kind of magic can be taught, most have a theme of sorts as they try out spells and learn which are best for them. For Hemera, this was fire magic. She already learned how to do it with her wand, but channeling her own magic to create fire, that wasn't easy for her. Her cousin Stephen, though, he had it a little easier, and his was crystal projections. He combined its combative magic to make strong crystal shields, not as strong as Romulus's crystals, but close. Despite what many would think of Hemera, she learned healing magic over combative, which given her cousin Lasley's blood one would expect him to take those classes. During holiday breaks, Hemera would visit her family and would show off her magic to her parents, and while she was good, she wasn't as good as they were. Despite having 2 powerful mage parents, Hemera wasn't too exceptional as one would expect, but Hemera never let that bother her and tried her best. Towards the end of 883 BS, after 3 years of study, Hemera returned home and talked with her parents about taking the throne. While they agreed Hemera would take it in the coming spring, she still needed a little guidance on being a ruler. But when her coronation rolled around on Gravnock 56, she walked down the hall in front of everyone with confidence and pride, and strived to be a proper queen her people needed. While the weight of the crown, literal and figurative, did take a while to balance, she found it rather quickly. She also asked Jab to be her king, and he agreed, and the two would marry the next year. Her younger sister Orbita was 21 and was preparing to leave to attend the Illyrian Academy for the winter classes when the year changed. Her 16-year-old brother was preparing for a round-the-world sailing trip with her parents, and Hemera was happy for him. After having ruled for a year, Hemera made preparations for her wedding, which was only a few months away. About a week after she turned 24, she married Jab Spiderbite, and it was one of the happiest moments she ever had. The next month, her sister returned to the academy to further her studies in the ice magic, and her parents and brother went on their trip, sailing the New Robin Kingdom. Normally, Hemera would be bummed about feeling out, but she had her husband Jab, and she never did with him around. Hemera and Stephen showing off their magic at the academy. Though after half a year of bliss, her kingdom was quiet and her marriage was off to a great start. She had got an urgent request from the Magical High Commission, apparently a far-off dimension, called Wulandia, home to Wulets, a race of warrior beings who have an insane amount of hair which they use to soften blows. Hemera joked her sister would like this place, but what drew her and the MHC was an invasion of vampiric rabbits that were enchanted with magic, making them immune to normal weaknesses. Despite the Wulets being a warrior race, they weren't equipped to handle these creatures, and the MHC didn't have the right kind of magic to destroy them either. Hemera's magnificent fire magic, pulse and sun as well, While Hemera did manage to destroy some of the creatures, she couldn't destroy them all, not like this. So Hemera took her wand and her inner magic and dipped down for the very first time and unlocked the ultimate magic form. It was so bright, Romulus described it as the second sun, and Hemera concentrated and her and the actual sun's light to wipe out the creatures, incinerating them all. But while Hemera was pleased that she used such powerful magic, what troubled her and the MHC was the creatures were somehow enhanced with magic, yet they could not determine how. When Hemera returned in time for the Stump Day of 880 BS, she had received word that there was an attempt to break into the crypt vault, and the special room placed under the Moe's tower that contains certain records and dangerous spells and drafts, including Hecate's dark magic books, which she was gone. But the crypt was enchanted in case anyone did try to break in, and without the wand itself to deactivate it, well, the amount of power required would probably level the tower above it. Though nothing was taken as no one got inside, Hemera would properly celebrate Stump Day as she couldn't help but feel it wasn't a coincidence it happened while she was off in Wulandia. But that spring, Hemera was filled with happiness as her cousin Stephen ascended to his throne, the first King Lazuli, one who was born into it. He also announced an engagement to Swana Robin, and Hemera could not be happier for him. The two then began discussing moving his kingdom to one of the coasts of the east and west Luciolius. But Hemera had a brilliant idea. Why not both? The sea between east and west Luciolius was only a few days' journey, and the remaining lands of west Luciolius was suitable for another kingdom. Hemera was thinking the Phoenix Kingdom, and she brought it in its king, Flamius, to discuss this, and he said he would think about it. With support from her uncle Leo, Hemera helped prepare the Lazuli citizens for relocation, Stephen sailing out himself for the perfect areas. But when Hemera turned 25, she began to miss the call of adventure she had when she was younger. The next year, Stephen returned with the plans for colonization. There was a larger island right above the west coast of East Luciolius, for which his family would rule from, and they would rule both coasts, and his younger sister Amber would be a noble and her family would help oversee the coasts. In spring of 878 BS, her sister Orbita graduated from Malarian Academy and announced her engagement to Eric Johansson, meaning she would become a queen. And that summer, after her 27th birthday, Hemera attended her sister's wedding and only wished her brother and parents could be there. Her sister moved out of the castle, leaving Hemera with her husband Jab, and the two of them discussed their future as a couple, about being parents in the future. Though Hemera wasn't ready to be a mother yet, it was something she looked forward to, and it was the most important thing a ruler can do for their kingdom, provide an heir for their future. And when spring came in 877 BS, Hemera's family reunioned home. She was overjoyed to see them, and she couldn't believe how much her little brother had changed. He was easily taller, almost as tall as their dad, and nearly as well built. But he also developed magic, and despite being a man, he was stronger than his two sisters, and Hemera was fine, proud by the fact of how strong her little brother was. Hemera being the second son. Hemera's father could see just how much she missed exploring, so he offered to look after the kingdom if she wanted to go out exploring, and Hemera did have a region in mind, the Gayan Jungle. While the jungle was part of the Spider-Bites territory, it was widely unexplored, and Hemera gathered some of her old exploring party and prepared for a journey into the jungle that fall. And when it rolled around, they journeyed through the jade moors to follow the river into the Gayan Jungle. This jungle was different than the Laden Jungle, and discovered the river in jade moors was actually part of the larger river inside of the Gayan Jungle, one already known, but the jungle part west of it was entirely unknown. Hemera and her new Turan Explorania party, which was mostly the same people, went deep into the jungle and they found something largely familiar, a pyramid, much like the one in Landon Jungle they discovered years ago. The Turan Explorania went inside, and more of them now had magic and were better prepared for what was thrown at them. Deep inside, they found more images similar to the ones in the Landon Pyramid, only this one had text in it, while the other pyramids were too degraded to make out. but Hemera took extensive notes on the pyramid's writings, hoping to somehow find a way to translate them. However, the pyramid wasn't abandoned, like the other was. As they left the pyramid, it was late winter of 876 BS, and they were ambushed by a group of septarians. Hemera heard about these monsters before, but these ones were different. They seemed more primal, having larger spikes and frames than others, much like the descriptions of the scourged Seth, though he hadn't been seen in almost 100 years till now. Amidst the spears and swords, their leader was Seth himself. The drawings in their great-great-grandmother's chapters in the spellbook were dead accurate. Seth immediately recognized Hemera as a daughter of the butterflies and ordered his septarians to attack, but Hemera's brother Alexander was among them, and he was a powerhouse, easily using magic to subdue the monsters. But Seth came right for the two of them, but with combined magic they blasted him into pieces. But the group quickly fled, putting as much distance between them and the septarians as they could. Suddenly, things started to make sense for her. This was where Seth was from, and the pyramid showed the monsters fighting some ancient race, and clearly they confused them for the first settlers. Or maybe there was no confusion, and Hemera returned home immediately and began looking through the oldest records in the libraries in the crypt. Through private notes from her ancestor Mo, from a conversation she had with Seth himself before the Independence War, and with translations from a willing septarian who she pieced this together. Thousands of years ago, there was a race of beings. The name wasn't translated or mentioned in Mo's notes, but they attacked the monsters, tried to take over their world, and when they couldn't, they destroyed it, but not before some fled to Mewni. Now one might think, given the similarities between humans and these beings, one might think they were the one and the same, but over 1,000 years before the first settlers arrived on Mewni, both the translation and Mo's notes said the tyrant's home was destroyed, so it's incredibly unlikely the Mewns are descendants from these beings, but given their similar appearance, it would lead to the monsters attacking them. This is just one of the many theories as the Mewman's origins, but no matter the past of the people her people were here now, and she was their queen, and she, nor any of their descendants, would ever let the monsters take their home. From Queen Mo's notes, she knew how hard she and the others fought, but what it took to claim the lands as their own, that they won the right to be here. It wasn't until the start of 874 BS did Hemera and her party return to the jungle, avoiding the area they called Septarsis. Hemera and the other pyramid. And that was part 2 of the biography of Hemera the Bright Knight by MewniHistorian on DeviantArt. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. And we'll see you all next time. Have a great rest of your day, and goodbye for now.